This is a must-see interview. Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos literally says Zelenskyy stands to lose a lot of money if this war ends. So does that mean that he's against the peace plan that's being brokered by President Trump? We're going to have that for you coming up in a bit in this interview, but we'll start with Simona talking about El Salvador. She was just there, met with Bukele, who's the president of El Salvador. Why is that country thriving under this president? How did he get that to happen? Why are the drugs slowing down, and why are the cartels and the gangs going away? So we'll start with that. You're going to want to stick around for the Zelenskyy stuff because she says some things that you haven't heard before on Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags. He was the topic for a long time, this guy Bukele. His name is Nayib Bukele. He's the president of El Salvador. He was a big deal for a long time because this guy Abrego Garcia came from El Salvador, and he was on President Trump's side, not the guy Abrego Garcia. Bukele was, because he said, why would I ever send this guy back from El Salvador, where he's from, back into the United States illegally? What's the story with that? Even he was smart enough to know that Abrego Garcia was in the wrong, and those on the left in this country were also in the wrong. Well, I bring him up because my good friend Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos was just in El Salvador, met with President Bukele. First of all, Simona, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
How do you fly everywhere? You and George are going. I look at the Instagram. Oh, look, they're in El Salvador today. Oh, look at that. They're in Italy. Oh, they're in Greece. They're in Russia. I mean, I don't know how you do it. I physically don't think I could travel as much as you. Does it ever wear on you that you're traveling so much?
Well, to be pretty honest, it's tiring. It's exciting in the process of reaching new destination and seeing new people, but
Right.
it's really tiring, and we feel it, but we keep going until we we can.
No,
It's pretty interesting, though.
it's amazing. So I want to talk about the opportunity to go to El Salvador in a second. But just for those who are watching, listening, you're somebody who's an interviewer, a very good one. You're somebody who's multilingual. You've got, 5 languages, I think. You're a lawyer, international lawyer. You worked at the EU. So you really know what you're doing. And a lot of these trips, you end up getting incredible information. Now, you had not met Bukele before, right?
No, I had actually a great pleasure and a privilege to have a talk with him, talking about language in Spanish,
Yeah,
because it's I can communicate in his language, which allow me to really understand the vibe of the person, right? When you
yeah,
speak the same language. And this trip happened thanks to former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz and his
right.
wonderful, lovely wife Ginger, who invited me and George on this trip on occasion of this huge crypto conference that was
Yeah,
taking place in El Salvador this week. So we met with President Bukele, and I was impressed by actually his drive and the fact that he kept his promises, which is really rare in the political scene, mostly when we think about a young
yes.
leader that did a campaign over taking off the country and trying to elevate the country to the same level of other Western democracy. When we think about that, Central America is tainted by all these gangs and criminality and drug dealers,
Yeah.
and El Salvador, I learned, was one of the most dangerous country among them all, including Colombia, and was crucial for the trafficking and gangster taking over, making life people impossible. Because there are rules for these gangs to raise up in their status, and which is killing people even for no reason. And this is something I learned while I was there. So it basically created these high security prisons where not only is made a deal with Donald Trump to receive all the illegals, not only from El Salvador, but also from other countries, and keeping them in these high security prisons, but also keeps all these criminals, cleaning up the streets from danger and giving back to people a life, literally a
Yeah,
life, and not
yeah.
being afraid of being killed on the streets.
Many times when you've got a country like that where the gangs, the cartels run the joint, and that's what was happening in El Salvador. You can't get a president in there that can be independent, that can clean it up. Why do you think he's been so successful? Is there something about this guy that made him have the ability to have that strong backbone and say, I'm going to stop the gangs? Because remember, Abrego Garcia was going to be sent back to El Salvador, but there was a non-deportation order to that country because there was this 18th Street gang that was a rival gang of his gang. It doesn't exist anymore. Bukele got rid of that gang. So why do you think he's been so successful knowing the pressure he was under by these cartels and by these gangs?
he had a vision, and he was bold in implementing this vision. So he took action, and I think sometimes all it takes is to stop preaching and start doing. And I think that vision allowed him to even establish alliances with country much bigger than El Salvador. Let's think about the United States of America
Yes.
and how much respect he achieved to gain among even the MAGA people, right? Because we kind of there is a common spirit of law enforcement and
Yeah.
values that we shared. So we also start to bridge this connection with like-minded people abroad and to learn from them, right? So you learn a lot, I think, from Donald Trump and the model that United States of America was presenting and imported in El Salvador, trying to make of El Salvador, let's say, a new Dubai in the Central America. So we don't need to go up to the Middle East, but we will have this flourishing country, which is now embracing all the new novelty of the new world,
Yeah.
including crypto conferences. And to do that, of course, you have to provide safety. You know, people underestimate how important safety is until you are not safe anymore. And I think El Salvador and this action shows how important it is to have a strong leader who has a vision, establish alliances with the right people, and go for it.
When we think about it, Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos, by the way, go follow her everywhere at Simona Mangiante over on X, and I think it's at underscore Simona. No, it's at Simona underscore Mangiante underscore over on
Yes.
IG. Go and follow her on Instagram as well. She's a great follow. I have never been to Central America. I don't think you'd been there before. How did you find El Salvador just as a geographical place? And when you talk to the people who are from there, how did you find them?
Well, I found people extremely friendly, extremely welcoming, and also I couldn't relate to what they were telling me, which is El Salvador used to be only a few years ago a place where you could not walk to the mall.
Yeah,
Because you would risk to be shot. It's a beautiful country, has incredible nature, incredible weather, and it's as dollar. You know, the wonderful thing, I've never been there, but it was amazing. I could pay in dollars, so it makes, of course, even
right.
tourism and traveling to El Salvador much easier. So I was really much impressed, and it really it was above my expectation. Like I thought it
Good.
was something like typical Central American little country with their own, their problems and their. No, I see people that are willing to grow, and this shows there is a hope for many other countries, and that really the big United States leadership or could be of example and lead also broad improvements.
The left in this country wants us to hate this country, and they want us to believe that other countries hate us. I'm guessing when you were there, you were not finding a lot of hate for the United States. Do the people of El Salvador like us? I get the feeling they do,
Absolutely.
but do they?
Oh yes, actually, they want to the biggest dream, the American dream. They wants to be America. They look up to Americans, right? The biggest thing that can happen to the country is to come as close as it is to the American model. So no, I didn't feel this way at all. Zero. No,
Very
they love
interesting.
Americans for sure.
Good. I'm
Mm.
glad. I'm glad to hear it. And I think that we need to say that more often. It's Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos. Go and follow her everywhere. I know that you didn't interview him this time. I thought that you did, but you didn't this time. You're hoping to go back and interview him
No.
at some other time. You guys, I'm
Yes.
guessing you got along well. And as you said, Matt was there, and he spent the time with Bukele as well. But if you were to go back, I mean, what kind of questions do you have for a guy like that? I don't know a lot about him, but he seems to be a young MAGA who's in El Salvador, if that makes sense. Maybe make El Salvador great again. I'm guessing that's the kind of perception you take from speaking with him. What would you want to know from this guy?
Well, I would like to know if I had the opportunity to sit with them. What was the biggest challenges he had to face to bring security back to El
Yeah,
Salvador? Because, of course, one thing is to say, I will make El Salvador great again and safe again. Another thing is doing it.
yeah.
And as you mentioned, might be a lot of pressure and a lot of risk for him and his family. So, how did he create the conditions to implement his plan? And this is something I really would like to know. And also how you envision for the future trade agreements, not only with the United States, because they recently signed a trade agreement with the United States, which makes easier to export and import goods, but
Yeah.
also with European Union, because European Union is another commercial partner, potential commercial partner, at least on airlines. And how does envision something similar happening with Europe, considering all the problems that are happening now in Europe? So
those
this
are
would
great
be the very
questions.
good questions.
I hope you get to ask him that, and maybe I'll go with you, and I can interview him too, and we'll have a really great
That would
interview.
be amazing.
Eh,
I think they're really open to talk and to
yeah, it
have
sounds
their
like it.
voice listened. Yes.
Well, good. Now, my wife and I are watching The Amazing Race. The Amazing Race this time is in Europe. They went to Milan in Italy. I didn't see in Milan what you and I know is going on in Milan, but they weren't really showing the city of. They were showing the outskirts. They were showing where flowers are grown, and they were showing vineyards, stuff like that. They were acting as if everything was great. But you and I have talked about this a lot. You're from Italy, although many think you're a Russian spy. You're not. You're from Italy. You're born and raised, Caserta. So tell me what's
Esatto.
really going. Tell me what's really going on in Milan. What's going on because that's northern. I was surprised by how far north Milan was, and you're telling me the influx of people from northern Africa is really impacting that city. Tell me about that.
Yes, talking about a parallelism with El Salvador and what is going on in Italy, they are
Yes.
building up real gangs in Milan at the train station. So when you get to Milan from Rome or any other city, or even from the airport and take your shuttle to go to Milano city, you will immediately have the impact of with what Milano has become. It's they kill people, they assault people for AirPods, for
Wow.
things that has as little values as that. And there is pride in hating on Italian culture and hating on Italian um, women as well. The number of rapes have increased tremendously, and this is honestly data we can't allow ourselves to live with. Milan is not a countryside in the fashion district. Everybody can go even on Instagram right now and hashtag Milan. You will see stories of random people telling you how could they imagine that they should be scared to walk from home to their office. That's insane things. Not to talk about the subway and the metro station.
Yeah.
This has become crazy, and this is because we have allowed not these illegal flows to come for countries that have nothing in common with Italy, that don't have nice feelings toward Italy and Italians, and they want to dominate and change and hate on our culture. And that's a fact. I mean, we can't deny it. That's the reason why, England too late decided to exit European Union.
Yeah.
But I hope that the time that other countries like Italy would follow the lead. Now, we have this leader, Giorgia Meloni, who is supposed to be make Italy great again, the most conservative, patriotic leader Italy could hope for. But she couldn't change this. Actually, it's becoming worse under a presidency, not because of her, because of what has been building up for years now, and it's completely out of control. So
Well,
we have one option.
I want to ask you about that though, because Georgia Maloney, you like her, I like her, I want to like her, but this is happening under her presidency. Is she restricted because Italy is still in the EU? Because here in the United States, as you know, just as well as I do, President Trump said I'm closing the border, and he did. The border's closed. That's it. Nobody comes in anymore. It's that easy for him to do, but it's an independent country that is not beholden to anybody else. So can Meloni do what President Trump did, or are there restrictions on her ability because they're in the EU?
Well, there are restrictions because of the EU, but those restrictions do not justify a global lack of action. There are
Right.
things that could have been done to take care of the situation, and in particular, starting from implementing your authority on your own country, where you still have, you
Right.
can't control them to come in or out, but you can control to arrest everybody in your territory that does a crime. So when these people are illegal, they are committing a crime already,
Yes.
right? When these people steal or they assault people, they are committing a crime. So there is another aspect to this situation, and it's not only how can we manage who comes in, and this is European Union issue, and you
Yeah.
can you can negotiate this, you can exit European Union if you want to have control over who comes in. But also there is the other aspect. She has authority, full authority, to do something with whoever is on the Italian territory and commits crimes. Why these people are not in prison? Why our system is so indulgent with criminals, why we're always thinking about the rights of the criminals and not the rights of the victims, and not to protect our people, why we're always thinking about this left terrible mindset where we have to protect people from the consequences of their own action.
Yeah.
Just let them pay for it. That's it.
Well, let them pay for it and then deport them after they do that. So I didn't understand that part of it. It's much like very blue cities here where they're not punishing criminals. So criminals are getting away with it, and they're getting away with it because they're probably saying things like, you're xenophobic if you don't want them here from Ghana or whatever else. So they're letting the criminals get away with it, and the victims just have to take it. Again, does she have the ability as the leader of that country to fix that? Or is this some sort of a push by the EU to have more people come from civilizations that don't agree with you and me? I guess I'm trying to figure it out. It sounds like it's like a leftist blue city here in the United States, like Chicago or Portland or whatever, maybe New York. And that's not okay. But are her hands tied, or is she saying that she'll do it and just not doing it? I guess that's the question.
Well, it's even worse because she says she's doing it, and she's not. It's not like she say that she will do it. She says that I am taking control over this issue, but she's not. And it's true that there is a limit and a restriction because of the European Union decide how we distribute among quota people coming from these countries. But what has she done from to negotiate with the European Union about a solution for Italy, or to start a process to exit the European Union to preserve Italian integrity? What she has done to punish these people, to send these people back to where they belong, because again, most of these people commit crimes in Italy. So she has authority in law enforcement,
Right.
and the law enforcement is not competence of the European Union, it's competence of Italian government, and that's it. So there is much that could be done. There are limits and restrictions, but in situation like Donald Trump, we don't need leaders who look for excuses. We need leaders who implement actions.
Yes.
We don't need people who says this can be done because of this, and that. I'm here to make sure this can be done.
It is Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos. Go follow her at Simona Mangiante over on X. It's at Simona_Mangiante_ over on IG. Go follow everything that she does. You're still doing the Global View with George? You still doing that?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Go check that out on YouTube, The Global View. It's a great podcast. These two know so much about so much, and it's a great podcast. Let me ask you about the Russia-Ukraine deal. I am not a fan of Zelenskyy. I'm less of a fan of Putin. It's not like I'm on Putin's side. But Zelenskyy, in my opinion, is a little dictator. He stopped the media from reporting correctly. He stopped people from worshiping a certain way. He stopped elections from happening. We had elections here during the Civil War, but he couldn't have an election during this war, I guess. And I think the guy's probably pocketed a lot of money. That's my opinion. Having said that, it looks like he might be ready to take a deal. It looks like Russia might be ready to take a deal. You know more about that conflict than anybody I know. I mean, I'm not kissing up to you. I believe that. You've sat down with former leaders of Ukraine. I mean, you know about this stuff. What do you feel is going to happen in this situation? Is it going to be accepted by both Russia and Ukraine? And what implication is there for the EU in all of this?
Well, Joe, you said it perfectly. It's not a football match. We shouldn't be here taking sides,
Right.
mostly for people who have not skin in the game, like yourself and myself.
Right.
But there are objective data that emerged most recently, even about corruption in Ukraine. There is an investigation over all these funds that have enriched the pockets of Zelenskyy and oligarchs while people were dying in the fields. And this is pushing people to lose consensus, even like soldiers in Ukraine that are refusing to fight because they fight for a country who is not fighting for them, and they even realize it before Ursula von der Leyen does.
Right.
So Donald Trump did an incredible job in presenting one first feasible peace agreement, which Russia seems to overall agree with. There are very clear points. I think they are very fair points. On the other side, Zelenskyy is holding on to this war as a money machine maker. and is trying to renegotiate some points and delay the signing of this agreement because he has proved, and again, it's not a matter of sympathy or personal sympathy or friendship. He has proved that he's corrupt. He has proved that he doesn't really care about his people, and that this war resulted in an enormous wealth for himself and his protected people.
Well,
So
I want to
these
stop
are
you for no. That was a great point. I want to stop you for a second because Simona, that's a great point that not enough people are talking about. Zelenskyy would actually lose money if the war stops.
yes.
Wow.
And that's why
How
you
sick
see
is that,
him as
though?
he's him as a money beggar. He's always putting, he's a great actor. We know it's his career, it's his background. So
Literally
it's
an
no
actor,
news in
yes.
that. He's an actor, so he's playing the victim very well. And but he's not playing the president very well. I mean, it should be a
Right.
little bit more shameful when he does these things. So yes, it's a money machine, and for him and for his protected people. And there is something that I don't think leaked yet to to the news here, but some soldiers in Ukraine are deserting, are saying, "I'm stop fighting this
I had no
war."
idea.
Why? Yes, it's recent, like last week. They didn't come to. I mean, it was news in Europe. Why they're doing that? Because they don't want to. They don't buy anymore into a lie. You
Yeah.
know, this
Yeah.
you can't feed off people. Of putting people is literally his pockets are becoming full, and all the Ukrainian families are losing their sons, going to the front to fight for what? And this is really something that we should reflect upon, even because when we look at the agreements that Trump administration proposed to end this war, we can see that it's kind of the same things that were established in the Minsk agreement with some additions. So
Right.
we go back to Minsk. So if Ukraine had respected Minsk agreements, we didn't need to go through all this bloodshed once again. So we have no Ukraine in NATO. He also proposed a favorable condition for Ukraine, like using the frozen Russian assets to rebuild Ukraine, and trying to present on the table something that as much as fair as possible, and giving to back to Russia, the east of Ukraine, the region of Donbass and Crimea, which, if we remember, was the will of the people expressed in a referendum, back in the referendum in Crimea.
Right.
And we talked about, so what this plan is reflecting is nothing more, nothing less than the Minsk agreements, the will of the people, and common sense.
Well, I want to ask you this because you bring up Minsk, and that's a very important point. It's Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos. She's amazing. The Minsk agreements didn't need to expire. In fact, they could have been continued. And I think if they would have continued, or that agreement would have continued, then this invasion would never have happened. There are all sorts of reports saying that Boris Johnson walked away from continuing the agreements, and that was at the behest of the Biden administration, allegedly. Kamala Harris, 5 days before the invasion, was in Europe somewhere, and she didn't get anything done. Yeah. Right. So this didn't have to happen. Right now, again, Putin's a bad guy. I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. I don't think he should have rolled tanks in there. But his argument is there was no agreement anymore. I mean, I didn't know that NATO wasn't going to continue coming east, so I felt like I should go in there and do what I did. Again, I'm against it. I think that he was wrong in his thought process. But if those agreements, A, could have been continued, right? And B, why didn't Biden stop this before it started?
Well, that's exactly the point. We have to look at facts rather than whatever opinion we have toward one leader or another, even
Right.
because propaganda machine has been brutal. So we have been trained to hate on Russia for a couple of years now, right? Even more than a couple of years. So it's easy to put all the blame on Russia. And so if we say something that contradicts a little bit this hysteria of going against Russia no matter what,
Right.
we are wrong. We are automatically wrong without going any further. So we just have to look at facts, look at Minsk agreements, look at the failed attempt in Istanbul because of Boris Johnson, as you mentioned. But, people don't take the time, unless they are, in the news industry like yourself, to go and dig into the facts.
Right.
Well, even those that are in the news media, sometimes they don't do it. So,
No, you're right.
Yeah, it's really all there. So how can we agree with, disagree with Putin taking an action for having this his border surrounded by NATO, while this is against anything that was agreed before? Or how can we put all the blame on one side and build a narrative that sometimes somebody wakes up and then go invade another country because it's the plan to enlarge the Russian imperial times? This is a fairy tale. It's not even true. So
Right.
just look at facts and agreements and things how they unfold. And I think Trump understood it very well, because when I read the peace agreement proposed by the Trump administration, I said, okay, this is done from a place of deep knowledge and
Yeah.
deep understanding of what's really going on.
It's Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos. She's amazing. Follow her everywhere. Let's finish with this. I don't know how the EU is reacting to this peace deal that's being offered up. What are they saying?
Well, that's actually a great question, because now they're shaking. Okay, so they feel like they've been following blinding Joe Biden until Trump came into office. So once the wind shifted and Europeans are nothing but followers, now they don't know what to do. Right? They don't know what to do, and they have to justify with their people that sacrificed a lot. Sacrificed a lot of our. The inflation in Europe has been brutal. We are not energy self-sufficient. So when we have Ursula von der Leyen cutting off Russian gas, or sacrificing taxpayers' money to send aid to Ukraine, this resulted in most of European countries in huge inflation. Huge inflation. People have suffered an economic crisis.
Right.
So for the leaders now, come Donald Trump and basically recognize that, Putin is not that monster, that we should actually, to achieve peace, we should recognize what is right, and what is right is not what they portray to be right. Now they're shaking because they don't know how to justify a potential shift in action or of support or whatever, because they're like blindly supporting Zelenskyy, including Meloni. Meloni was on the records trying to justify herself, saying, I never spoke about Zelenskyy victory. Actually, she did. She sided with Zelenskyy.
They all did.
They all did. And now they're trying to go back, which makes Europe even look weaker. Just stick to your position and argue your position in another way than America did it. That's how they are. That's how weak Europe is.
Oh, no, and I understand that, and you explained it very well. But Zelenskyy, as you said, benefits if war continues. How about the EU? Do they benefit if war continues, or is the EU going to benefit from it ending? I would think that if you're a European Union country, you'd be scared to death if war continues. But I don't know the ins and outs of what happens in the EU. Do they want the war to end, or do they benefit if it continues?
Well, that's a very good question, because actually they're stupid enough to making Zelenskyy interest just to embrace propaganda they now feel loyal to. So continuing this war for Europe is a disaster. It's a disaster on any point of view. I don't see any money channel coming to Europe. It's all coming to Ukraine, right? So why they're doing that? Because of ignorance. I think most of the bureaucrats in Brussels are completely unaware of what geopolitics is. I mean, I've been working in Brussels long enough to know what happened in the corridors of European Parliament, European Commission. Sometimes people are more busy to look good, embrace the mainstream narrative to look good, and actually study what they're working on and make a difference. So that's not a place where difference happens. But now it has become a place where damage happens because of their ignorance, and they're clueless, and their lack of leadership. There is no leadership. There's nothing such a European Union leadership. That's the other thing.
So in other words, they have to try to come out of this looking good. Yeah, they want the war to end. They're not really sure what position to take yet. I did find this very telling, and I wonder what you thought about when you saw this as well. President Trump basically made a phone call and said, I want all of you European Union people to meet with me like in 3 days. And they were all there kissing his ring. It was very interesting to me because Joe Biden was treated like the puppet he was. And Donald Trump says, jump, and they say how high. The guy, what's his name, Rutte or something, the guy who runs the EU, this guy was like, Trump is my daddy. I mean, Simona, there's such a difference between how they're treating Trump and how they treated Biden. I find it to be very telling. From your aspect, your perspective, being from Europe, being that you used to work with the European Union, what is that all about? Do they just try to go with the way the wind blows? Because again, Biden was treated like an outcast. Trump is treated like he's the king of the EU. It's very strange.
Well, and it's true. It's true. They have a huge respect for Donald Trump, but their press wouldn't stop talking bad about Donald Trump. That's
Really?
yeah. I mean, you can go and see like all the things they say in Europe, Politico, and all these headlines trying to always attack Trump at in his home. But when Trump comes and try to fix our problem, here we go, the king. We're available in 12
Right.
hours. No,
Right.
5 hours if you need. That's a shows inconsistency from what they pretend to be and what they are. And yes, huge respect for a strong leadership, a strong leader as well.
Yeah.
That's 100%. And then don't forget, Europeans look up to America so very much, and they should.
Good. Well,
But
I
yeah.
agree. They should. It's Simona Mangiante Papadopoulos. Last thing, give me a prediction. Will this war end soon? Are we going to see it happen in the next few weeks, in the next few months? How do you see this thing ending?
Well, I see that the Trump administration is actively involved. We had different meetings taking place just like a few days ago in Moscow, and Zelenskyy is trying to be more moderate. I don't know if there is a still opportunity for him to steal. I think he's stole enough. So I'm pretty positive that I'm not saying the next weeks, but in the next few months, this should be over.
Good. I'm glad that you said that. I hope that you're right. Enough is enough. Billions and
I hope.
hundreds of billions of dollars from us. Millions of people, I think, have been killed now. I think into the millions. I think it's 5 or 6 or seven
It's
hundred thousand just Ukrainians. So you're talking about so many people just dead for no good reason. And I want it to end now. And I'm so glad that you brought up that Zelenskyy is getting paid. I think
Yeah.
the war machines across the globe are getting paid as well. They're okay with people going to the meat grinder as long as they keep on getting their billions and billions of dollars. I want it to end now, and I think that you're spot on right. Simona, thanks for making time today. Keep up the incredible work.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's always a pleasure coming on your show.
Pleasure is all mine. All right, that's it for Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags. This time, another one to drop very soon.